in a fractal arrangement. And those arrangements for the Western world looked chaotic because it didn't follow their own idea of organizing. But with newer research, they started saying that this arrangement better allows for wind to move through the city. This is one of my biggest problems with Lagos. I've always felt like Lagos planning was so terrible that since I've come to Lagos, I've not really felt the Harmattan wind. That's how bad the city planning is. Hello guys, welcome back to Madness in Nigeria Living, and I'm your host, JC. Have you ever stepped into a building and the moment you enter the building, everywhere just feels hot? Like you were walking towards the building, the weather was cool. The moment you stepped in, everywhere feels hot. Is this something you have experienced in Nigeria? I, for one, I live in one of those buildings, and it's something I know a lot of people don't necessarily think about. If you can afford ACs, you can afford your fan, no stress, you just need light. But does it have to be that way? Did you know about 22% of the electricity consumption in the world is used for air conditioning? 22%. So I was going out sometime last year with my cousin, and we were around, I think, Ikoyi environment, around Ikoyi on the island. And it was pointing to one building. I was like, what do I think about the building? I was like, my honest opinion, I do not like the building. I was like, why? The building looks good, it's a skyscraper. I was like, yes, but is it good for our climate? That's the thing. If you go to architectural school, the tissue contest is like, what's the context of the building you're making? Is it good for a particular environment? But that mindset is not something our architects have. Reason being, a lie was told, and the lie is something we all believe in, which is Africa was backward before the white men came. We did not have engineering, we did not have proper housing, that's why we were using mods. That's the lie. It's so sad that we believe in. And the reason why it's so sad we believe in the lie is there's a genius in clay housing. That genius is something that we disregarded, so much so that we see turning to concrete cement as urbanizing. Yes, there are a lot of limitations to clay housing, and I will come to it later on, but let's go to the genius of it. For one, clay housing has high thermal mass, and what that means is during the day, it insulates the heat from the outside from entering into the house, and at night, it slowly releases the heat, making everywhere warmer when the temperature drops. What that does is wonders. You don't need fans that much. You just stay inside and you are cool. And that is because if you look at every history, every culture in history, you notice that the architecture is based on what is available to them and their climate. It was very important to build based on what is available to you and your climate. So the way the Japanese in ancient time would build their houses is completely different from the way the Mexicans would build their houses, because they have different climate, they have different materials around them. But somehow we believed the lie and we thought we were backward. Now see, our houses now are built with concrete. First things first, concrete will bring more heat into your house, and especially with the use of this hollow concrete. We don't even use lightweight concrete. We have to use those hollow concrete because when you are building bigger with the 3-story building, 4-story building, you need that strength. The concrete that they used to build these houses makes the heat from the sun comes in, and that's why the day is very hot. So much so that sometimes when you step out, coming back into your house is usually hot. It doesn't have to be like that. That's just concrete. But there are a lot of things our architectures are doing wrong, especially in Lagos, Nigeria. Not just Lagos, Nigeria, literally every urban city in Nigeria. So we're talking Port Harcourt, Abuja, is we're adapting the architecture of the contemporary Western world or modern architecture of the Western world. It depends. But we are adapting it in a way that we are not considering our climate. We just see, oh, this looks cool, and we get it. Usually that comes from the fact that we import a lot from there, and when you import the materials they used to build, it's also one of those things that can be avoided. We import their mindset when it comes to building. So when you do that, you're forced to build a house that you can't stay in the house without air conditioning and fans. Sometimes just the fans don't work. See, if you can see quite literally, I'm sweating and I'm under air conditioning. I'm literally under air conditioning, but I'm sweating. That's how hot Nigeria has become. Yes, I know there's climate change and the temperature of the equatorial region has gone up a bit, but the underlying factor is our buildings are built in a way that we have conceptualized it as being a modern design that causes our houses to be hotter during the day and hot at night. So we need constant air conditioning, which is very, very fascinating, because last I checked, there's no city in Nigeria that has 24 hours light. Our infrastructure for light is terrible. We rarely have light, and just last year, the main grid collapsed more times than we can count. If Rihanna released a single every time the main grid collapsed, we would have had a new album from Rihanna. A lot of people would be happy. That's how frequent it happened. And in this kind of country, it's so surprising that we're adapting an architecture that makes it nearly impossible to survive without air conditioning. Is there a way around it? Of course there's a way around it. I just wanted to highlight the madness in it. Just think about it here. When you are thinking of renting a house now, do you conceptualize being able to stay in the house without an electrical fan? It's just a concept that is so absurd. And in my process of making research for this episode, I kept on thinking back to my childhood. Light was really a thing. Maybe my memory is failing me right here, but I don't feel it was as hot as it is now. I may be wrong, but we rarely have light. Generator was rarely on, but you can survive the night or throughout the night. So what was different then? And mind you, I grew up in a concrete home. It's not like I grew up in a mud home. So what was different then? Let me highlight things that are different then that goes a long way we don't even consider again. First things first, we had louvres for our windows. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a louvers window? I cannot recall. But see the brilliance about louvers window. The fact that you can open it horizontally, it allows proper ventilation. Louvers give you about 82% ventilation relative to the size. If you have those sliding windows, that's about 50% ventilation relative to the size. If you have the one that opens at the door, it's 72%. And for that 72% is if you have a normal size window. The bigger the window, they will be forced to use fixed glasses, which further drops down the ventilation to about 40%. But for louvers, the bigger the window, the ventilation remains the same, because horizontal the air can pass in easily, and you can easily close it anytime you want. Why did we stop using louvers? For some reason, we felt like it was outdated, it was old school. So we are jumping on the new thing. But the new thing doesn't put into consideration the climate. The climate of Nigeria is very hot compared to the West, who are copying their style. We have a way hotter climate on average. So much so that a lot of Nigerians don't actually know that coconut oil is solid in room temperature. Think about it. Have you gone to a store to buy coconut oil and it was solid? Almost never in Nigeria will you find coconut oil solid, and it's because Nigeria room temperature is higher than room temperature. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but there's a temperature of a room that the scientists call room temperature, and Nigeria on average is higher than that. And we live in that kind of climate, yet we adapted a window system that makes ventilation poorer. That's, mind you, if you have a good window, because most Lagos homes now, they have rectangular windows that are very tiny, but that's what we consider fashionable. That's what we consider rich man house. We don't think, because if we think, we can see that our current architecture doesn't work for us. It makes cost of living higher. It makes our reliance on electricity and everything higher, which makes, for one, our greenhouse emission higher, which is funny because Nigerian government keep on saying, oh, we want to reduce our emission. Oh God, that's a trend right now, by the way. But the Nigerian government keep on saying it, especially Lagos government. And if you are serious about that, one way to do it is simple city planning. If you put city planning that prevents some of this architecture from being created, you'll see that our reliance will naturally go down. Now, another way we did it in the past that we use less air conditioning, as simple as it sounds, was our roofs were wider than the building, way wider than the building. You could find shade around all sides of the building I grew up in, and it wasn't just unique to the building I grew up in. Almost every other building in the street I grew up in, the shade from the ceiling was wide enough to cover everything during the day. But now you rarely see ceilings, you rarely see roofs where this is the building and they form proper shade. What that does is the wall gets direct sun. The wall is heated directly from the sun and it increases the heat inside the building. But if you give proper shade, it naturally reduces that. So we already have poorer ventilation thanks to our windows. We reduce the size of our roofs. And not the last thing, I want to talk about two more things we stop doing. I grew up in an environment where every house around me had at least one plant. Either a mango tree, orange tree, or normal flowers. There were plants around. And the importance of plants around is it helps control the humidity of the environment. In essence, the plant makes the environment relatively cooler. But houses these days, first of all, we use concrete to cover the whole wall, prevent grass from growing, prevent greeneries from being around, which increases the temperature of the environment. Then the other thing that was done before, but this one was way before, I didn't grow up in this kind of homes, where our roofs and ceilings were dome shaped. They were circular in a way that helps facilitate circulation of air. The heat rise to the top. They were higher buildings. Like I said, I didn't grow up to meet this, but from research I saw that was how our buildings were. All these things were changed because we wanted to copy the West. We thought we were modernizing. What we didn't consider was the West architecture better serves them for their winter, for their colder climate. We don't have that. So what's the way forward? There's multiple ways to go around this. Like I said, all these examples I mentioned can be easily implemented. But the one I am particularly enthusiastic about is the work of different architects. For example, Francis Kere, a Burkina Faso architect that won the 2022 Prize Prize. Prize Prize is like the Pulitzer Award or the Nobel Prize for architects. He's the first black person to win it. He won the Prize Prize for his work in architecture, and what he does with his architecture is clay. His buildings are clay buildings, but it's not just clay. He uses locally sourced materials from the environment to build the buildings in a way that doesn't require electrical and mechanical air conditioning. Mind you, this is done in all over Africa. It's from Burkina Faso, but his buildings are all over Africa. See what he does. The first project he had was a school in Burkina Faso. The school was done with clay. Doesn't need AC. It's properly cooled during the day. And Burkina Faso is a landlocked country that their temperature is very high. It can get as high as 40 degrees during the day. How did he achieve that? First things first, clay has a good thermal mass. It absorbs the heat during the day and holds the heat like a battery. Then at night it slowly releases it when the temperature drops to warm up the place, stabilizing the temperature all day long. That's a simple thing. The first question now would be, okay, clay, how will clay survive the rainy season? Because that's one of the biggest problems with working with mud, working with earth. There are many ways we can achieve that, especially with modern technology. If we were considering how to work with the resources we have as opposed to just importing, we'll find creative ways. And I was so happy to see someone like Francis Carey, who was using our materials, our locally sourced materials, to make these buildings. And more so, I was happy to see that it is recognized at the world stage. There are other architects. There's this female architect, I cannot remember her name, but she's also from Burkina Faso. Hers is similar. She uses earth, mud, sand, stick to form her blocks. What that does is it reduces the need for importing things. You see what I'm pointing out now? Yes, there are a lot of limitations to their method, but I'm pointing out, if we were thinking in this manner, it will be cheaper on the long run to maintain these houses, to build these houses. But somehow we adapted a system that doesn't work with our environment. Another thing I find fascinating when I was making this research here was the Eastgate Center, a building in Zimbabwe. It's a shopping complex, a very big shopping complex. If you are in Lagos, let's say a huge portion of CMS, it's a shopping complex like that big. But it was constructed in a way that doesn't need air conditioning. And from all the shots I watched and different people there, they said the same thing. The place is naturally cool. It uses ventilation and other technical ways to achieve it. And what the architect who made that did was he studied termites, the way termites build their structures in Africa. He studied the big termite structures and considered how to achieve it. So it's achievable. Yes, I know there will be the upfront cost, and there's also the problem with scalability. It's difficult to build a lot of these houses at once and as fast as we do, because when you want to use it, you have to wait for it to completely dry, which takes time. That said, if we look towards this technology, we will find ways naturally, because we are geniuses. Don't let what the white men push to us deceive us. We are geniuses. And if we start adapting this system naturally with our modern technology, with the help of artificial intelligence, we will find ways to achieve this. Is this something Nigerian, like our government, will look into? Probably not. I'm just saying this because it shows the madness of how we think. We don't consider our climate. We just go to school, become architects, design buildings, and don't consider the fact that these buildings that were adapting from the Western world have a different climate. What happened to context? What's the context of the environment you're making the building in? What happened to that? I hope this might be one of those conversations that more people will talk about, and we'll start moving towards those kind of houses. Or better still, just go back to using louvres. Just go back to using wider shades. Just go back to, instead of concrete floors in our homes, we'll have sand floors that we can plant trees, because those things help reduce the temperature. It helps make the environment cooler. But in our quest of modernization, urbanization, we have lost it all. The Western world we are trying to copy is now looking back to these things they considered barbaric, and they are adapting it. See, for example, the city of Yach in the Middle East is one of the city with the, it's not one, it's the city with the most wind catchers in the world. What is a wind catcher? A wind catcher is a ventilation system that catches wind from the outside, takes it into the house to cool the house naturally. From history, it can be seen that the wind catcher system was also used in Egypt. In fact, a lot of people believe Egypt originated it. So a system like that is currently being adapted in UK. There are a lot of buildings in UK now that have wind catcher. These are architectural systems that the white people, the Europeans, consider barbaric, but now they are seeing the importance of it. So we can do the same. We can look back at our own previous architecture, see how we can adapt it for the modern world. Or even look around the nature we have around us and look at the animals, how they survive in this climate and adapt things. It's called biomimicry. When you use biomimicry, we'll create buildings that are better sustainable for a particular climate. That's it, guys. That's all I have to say. I was making research on this topic and I was amazed. I went strolling when I was making research on this topic, and I went through my estate counting the windows from every building, and I was seeing most were sliding windows, poor ventilation. Cross ventilation is not a concept, and worse than that, we don't build. Oh God, let me talk about this. So this is unrelated to this research here. I was watching a video in 2021 or 2022 about the ancient city of Benin, and when the Europeans came to the ancient city of Benin and many West African cities, they thought there was no city planning because a lot of these cities were built in a fractal arrangement, and those arrangements for the Western world looked chaotic because it didn't follow their own idea of organizing. But with newer research, they started saying that this arrangement better allows for wind to move through the city. This is one of my biggest problems with Lagos. I've always felt like Lagos planning was so terrible that since I've come to Lagos, I've not really felt the Harmattan wind. That's how bad the city planning is. And if we stop trying to copy what we don't understand, because it's not just about putting concrete building. Does it work for your environment? If we start implementing based on function, not aesthetics, we start looking at, our buildings are supposed to be a function. They are supposed to shield us from the outside world. They are supposed to make life for us more convenient, and not looking about, does it look beautiful? We'll start adapting buildings that better suit our climate instead of our over-reliance on air conditioning. That's it, guys. This is the second time I'm saying it, but sorry, that's it, guys. Thanks again for coming. I'm almost pissed, but I'm also fascinated to see that work is being done across Africa. And I just hope that as a country, Nigeria, we jump on the cruise too. We start doing things that are more sustainable for us. And I believe it will answer a lot of our problems. That's just it. I believe it will answer our housing crisis on the long run. I believe it will answer our electricity consumption on the long run. And maybe our electrical grid won't collapse multiple times this year, hopefully. This is our first episode this year. Thanks again for coming. It was a wonderful one. I loved making research on this particular topic. I usually don't like talking about how much research I make, but the research was very entertaining for me. I don't know. These days I feel like architecture is one of those things that fascinates me. Maybe that's why I'm really talking about it and not really about the madness, but it was a fascinating journey, and seeing that work is being done, seeing that it can be achieved, seeing that when you think about clay houses, mud houses, it doesn't have to be something so primitive. There are beautiful mansions made with clay now. You just have to look for clay architecture and you will be amazed. You will be very amazed. I like that. So that's it, guys. Fourth time, I think. Thanks again for coming. Do well to like, subscribe, comment your thought. My last week's special episode, I made a mistake because of misinformation when I was making my research, and someone corrected me in the comment section. I really appreciate that. If there's something you want to point out, a mistake I made, you can comment. We're all learning here, and I will appreciate that. I love that for me. I love that for you. Mwah. See you again next week. Bye.